I'm Darryll McCall, Superintendent from the Wachusett Regional School District, and I'm here today at Chocksett Middle School to meet with Principal Chris LaBreck and take a tour of Chocksett. After that, I'll head over to Wachusett Regional High School, where I'll be meeting with Principal Bill Beando, where we'll take a small tour and talk a little bit about the high school. But first, let's go on into Chocksett. Okay, so we're here today with Principal Chris LaBreck. Chris has been with the Wachusett Regional School District now since July of this year, so he's a brand new principal here at Chocksett, and we're really happy to have you here, Chris.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in.
Good to see you. So, Chris, can you tell me a little bit about what it is about Chocksett Middle School that made you want to come here?
Well, there's a few things, really. One is it's part of the Wachusett Regional School District, so it gave me a great opportunity professionally to have some dialogue with colleagues, professional development, and learn and grow as a school administrator. The other thing is the community of Sterling is just such a wonderful, caring, small community, which is where I'm comfortable. It's where I'm coming from. It's part of what my experience has been, and something I'm really comfortable with. So, and it just felt good when I came in for the interview. I wasn't sure that it was going to be something I was going to work out, but when I came in for the interview and through the process, it just really felt good and felt like it was something that would be a good fit for both of us. So
that's great.
Yeah.
So if you can tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your own educational experiences.
Sure. Well, my educational experience starts right from the time I was born. My father was a teacher. My whole life he was a teacher. My mother became a teacher. She actually graduated with her bachelor's degree when I was in middle school.
Oh, wow.
And then finished her master's degree when I was in high school and became a first grade teacher. And is still teaching first grade, which is really amazing. And I think that had a huge influence over why I went into education. To watch her raise 4 kids, work full-time, and go to school full-time really drove home how important education was, and really influenced the direction I went. After graduating high school, I went on to Assumption College, where I earned a bachelor's degree in social and rehabilitative services. Met my wife while I was there. She grew up in Worcester, so we stayed in Central Mass.
Yeah.
Finished a master's degree in special education immediately afterwards at Assumption. Began teaching in the Worcester Public Schools as an inclusion specialist, and then moved on to be a team chairperson, which is where I got my first taste of administration and interacting with parents and families and making them part of the educational process, which was really rewarding. And I also completed a program for certification through the Worcester Public Schools and Worcester State College at the time, now university, in school administration. I went to King Philip High School in Rentham for 1 year as an assistant principal. It was a great year, a huge learning experience. But after a year, the position in West Boylston opened up, which was where I lived.
Right.
And it was a middle school position, and that's where my passion is. So for the past 9 years, I've been the administrator in charge of the middle school in West Boylston at the middle high school. A wonderful, wonderful experience. Nothing but good things to say about that. The people I worked with, the families, the kids, the community. But it was time for a new challenge, and this worked out really well. So
great, excellent. You lead right into my next question, which is all about what is it about the middle school experience that really attracted you to 5th through 8th graders in terms of educating them and being there for them?
Yeah, well, there's research that shows the time in an individual's life where their brain develops the most is clearly birth to 5. But the second time in your life where your brain is that adolescence in middle school.
Right.
So the development that happens between the time a kid comes in here as a 5th grader and they leave as an 8th grader is just amazing to see and watch and be a part of. Just such a rewarding experience. And you get to see, really, they're little kids when they come up here as 5th graders.
Right.
And they want to make you happy, they want to please you. They're not quite sure. It's all about rules and following rules. And then you go through that process of testing boundaries and limits and developing who you are, what your interests are.
Right.
And hopefully by the time you finish 8th grade and you move on to the high school, you're a young adult ready to contribute, think independently. And so to be a small part of that development is just, I can't think of anything that's more rewarding than that. So
it's really all about the growth process for those adolescents.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about Chocksett, the history associated with this building in Sterling.
The town of Sterling actually at one point was known as Chocksett, and it's a Native American term, which means land of the foxes. So the school is named, that's where the name comes from.
Yeah.
It was originally a primary K-3 school, I believe. There was a renovation completed around '98 that made it a 5-8 middle school, which is a unique structure for Wachusett, in that we're the only middle school that has 5th grade as part of us. The renovation created 2 distinct hallways, one for 5th and 6th grade, one for 7th and 8th grade. The other thing that the people in Sterling really made clear was their desire to have a theater and a place for the arts. So we have a beautiful theater that seats 250 people.
I'd really like to take a look at that.
Sure, come on in.
Okay, so we're here in the Chocksett Auditorium, Chris, and can you talk a little bit about this space in particular?
Sure. So the auditorium here was a push as part of the renovation. It was a push from the community. Sterling has a wonderful appreciation of the arts.
Yes.
So they invested quite a bit in it, and it really shows. It's a beautiful, beautiful space.
Yes.
Air conditioned, which is wonderful in those hot days towards the end of the year or the beginning of the year. And there aren't a lot of school theaters or auditoriums out there that are air conditioned these days. So the investment they made in it really shows. Probably the biggest thing that happens here is our spring production. We do a spring play each year. It's in end of March, beginning of April. They'll run a Friday night, Saturday night shows. And they're really, really well attended from what I hear. Rachel Rossi, our 8th grade language arts teacher, runs that drama club to do the production, which actually started last week. So they've already started to prepare for what will come 6 months from now.
So they're really getting themselves prepared for this big performance later on in the school year.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
I look forward to.
So in terms of learning spaces and so forth, can you talk a little bit about the learning spaces at Chocksett as well?
Sure. So we have, again, 2 distinct hallways, one for 5th and 6th grade. The 5th and 6th grade hallway has 10 classrooms and it has 8 classrooms and 2 science lab spaces, one for each grade level. Beautiful spaces. Each classroom has a tiled area with sinks so that we can keep clean and kids can wash their hands and whatever they need. And then the 7th and 8th grade hallway again has 8 classrooms, and then we have a really impressive shared lab space with the folding doors so that there's a lab station in the middle, classrooms on either side, and you can close off and make the lab part of either of those 2 rooms.
Could we take a look at a classroom?
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so we're now down in the middle of Chocksett, basically, in a grade 5 classroom. Chris, you want to talk a little bit about this learning space?
Sure. So this is a 5th grade classroom.
Okay.
I believe it's actually part of the old building, not part of it was renovated, but it's not part of the new construction that came on with the building project.
All right.
Like most of our classrooms, if not all of our classrooms, there's a smart board and projector for the teachers. It makes education a little more interactive. Less of the stand up front giving notes, the lecture type format. When you get the smart board, you can interact with technology.
Right.
You can see that the classrooms have storage spaces and sinks, and then plenty of room for the learning environment. And this classroom has a classroom library. Literacy is such a key initiative and skill for kids as they get older. So it's a pretty typical learning environment for Chocksett.
Right. Well, it's nice. You can see how the desks are set up in groups for cooperative learning activities. And you did mention the technology. Can you talk a little bit about just how technology has been infused into the middle school program here at Chocksett?
Sure. Well, I mean, technology has changed all of our lives. Right. How many of us don't walk around with a little computer in our pocket?
Yes.
So what that has done really has changed education completely. If a textbook is printed, by the time it gets to a school, it's probably outdated because you can look anything up on our smartphones and have instant access.
Right.
So it's made a shift in terms of rather than specifically learning content, it's about learning how to get content, how to read content, how to decipher what's real content and what's more or less reliable content.
Right.
And so there's that shift just in the world in general. In education, it's part of it is the immediacy for kids and the immediacy of feedback and the immediacy of information, and that's how they do things.
You can Google things now.
You can Google anything now, right? It's also part of their lives. These kids have grown up in a world where there's computers, and we went to college and there was no such thing.
You're dating us. That's I know.
Yeah. So it's just a different it's a different world for us, just like it was a different world for us growing up than it was for our parents.
Yes.
It's progress.
Yep.
And part of what happens. We're fortunate here at Chocksett. We have a pretty good wireless system at Chocksett, so we have wireless coverage pretty much throughout the building. We would like to improve it. We'd like to make it stronger so we could carry more devices. We'd like to increase the number of devices we have in the building.
Right.
Ideally, you'd love to be able to have everybody on a wireless device at different points, but that's that's in the future. It's coming. We do have access to Chromebooks. We have access to iPads. We have classroom clicker systems that engage kids in technology. Most classrooms have desktop computers for the students to access and look things up, and most of our classrooms have the smart boards and projectors. So it's a very different world in education than it was when we were in school.
Right.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Okay, Chris, now we're outside behind Chocksett. You have some beautiful spaces for kids for their extracurricular activities. Can you talk a little bit about what's going on this year with that?
Sure. We very lucky. Town of Sterling has some wonderful open space here behind the school that we're able to access and use. They do a wonderful job maintaining it and keeping it ready for us to use and play on. We have a very active student body. Currently in the fall, we have a cross-country team, boys and girls soccer team, as well as a field hockey team. Once the winter hits, we'll have boys and girls basketball. And then in the spring, we'll have track and field, as well as baseball and softball. So all those things, besides the winter, happen outside. It also gives us space to come outside after lunch. Middle school kids certainly could use some time to run off some of that energy and refocus for the afternoon, so it's a great space for that. In addition to the sports and activities that happen outside, we have a Model UN club that's very active and engaged. They're going to do, I think last year they went to 3 different meets or conventions, and this year I think they're looking at going to 5 during the course of the school year, so it's growing. And Ms. May, our 6th grade geography teacher, is running that. We have a Science Olympiad team. We're going to start, and we're in the process of developing a history club and a game club for after school for kids who want to get involved in doing things after school. We have a very active student council. Developing leadership is a big part of middle school. So we have a very active student council. We had elections recently, so every homeroom has homeroom reps. We have officers. There's monthly student council meetings, and I meet monthly with the officers before their meeting, which is really a wonderful way to keep in touch with the student body and give them a say in what happens in the building. They've planned their first dance for October 30th. We're going to have a Halloween dance on October 30th, which will be a lot of fun.
And what are you going to dress up as?
I tell my kids every year I dress up as the world's greatest father. So that's what they get.
That's a good costume.
Yeah. I'm the only one who believes it, but that's all right. So it's a very active, very busy, engaged school, and it's really been a lot of fun.
Great.
A lot of fun. So.
Good. Well, you know what? Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to walk around your building and see some of the learning spaces. I know you've got a beautiful library. Your gymnasium is gorgeous. I've been in there for many town meetings. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. And what we'll be doing is, after this, we'll be heading over to talk to Bill Beando at Wachusett Regional High School. So welcome back. This is Darryll McCall, Wachusett Regional School District Superintendent, and I'm here today talking with Principal Bill Beando from Wachusett Regional High School. So welcome, Bill. Good to see you.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Bill, if you could just tell us a little bit about your experiences as a principal and what brought you to be a principal here at Wachusett Regional High School.
Sure. I moved to the district 12 years ago to Rutland, and was an assistant principal in the Worcester Public Schools, and I was an administrator there for about 9 years. And moved to the district, wanted to be able to have some role in my district, and certainly knew that my kids would be coming through the school system here. So I thought it was a great opportunity when this position was open to apply for, and thankfully was appointed principal 9 years ago to this point. So it's been a great 9 years, and it certainly is a great thing to be able to have a role in the district in which you live. So I thought that was the best of both worlds.
Excellent, great. Okay, so can you talk a little bit about the high school? This is a great place. My own kids, I have a senior here. I have another student who graduated from this building. Wonderful experiences. Can you talk a little bit about just the size of the high school, the programs and so forth that are available?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, this is our 60th year here at Wachusett. It has definitely undergone transformations over the years. Most recently, 10, 11 years ago, we had the major reconstruction of the school that made it up to date and beautiful. So we're very blessed and fortunate to have such a beautiful building. When I started 9 years ago, we had about 1,950 kids, 1,950 students. And today, we have 2,170 students. So we certainly are growing. Don't have much more room, but we're growing. Students come from the 5 towns, obviously, and they enter in 9th grade and move on after 12th. Some of the great things that we have going on here is I think that one of the hallmarks for this school, to me, is there's something for everybody. We have so many kids, and it's interesting, just yesterday I was commenting that our population is so diverse. But hardly ever do you see a kid alone. Do you ever see a kid not sitting with friends or acquaintances at lunch or in the hallways alone? It just seems like naturally, because of our size maybe, but I think also because of our personnel, because of our programs, kids have been able to connect with each other. And that leads me into our programs. I would consider us a comprehensive high school, very competitive high school. Our students have many opportunities when they leave us. Around 90% of them go on to higher education, which is a phenomenal number. Our MCAS scores are very good, and we do perform well in many areas. And our kids seem to have success as they leave us. When they're here, though, they have certain things that happens to them. And we're talking a little bit about the history and where we've come. 9 years ago, the school took on a small schools approach, which basically means you take this really big high school and you kind of break it down into manageable spots. The real goal there is to make it more personable for our kids to have better connections, rather than be the one out of 2,170. We try to minimize that to some degree so that they're one out of a lesser number. So what we have done, and it gets a little bit difficult as the school does get bigger, and fortunately the budget doesn't get much bigger to support that in some ways, but what we've done over the past 9 years is divide our school into 2, the upper school and the lower school, the upper school being the juniors and seniors, lower school being the freshmen and sophomores. So there's your first division. And then in the lower school, we further break it down into a greenhouse and a white house, our school colors. So the greenhouse has one assistant principal that is in charge of that. That's half of the 9th and 10th grade class. The White House has the other half, and we have an assistant principal in charge of that. And those are, about 550 kids. So right away, we've been able to minimize the interaction or the touch points from 1 to 550 rather than 1 to 2,170. And then we built in other structures with that. Our assistant principal stays with those freshmen for the years of freshman and sophomore year, and then they kind of graduate up to the upper school where most of their classes will be up on the 2nd floor. And there they will pick up an assistant principal there who's in charge of the junior class, but we'll loop with them up to the senior year. So they've only had 2 administrators over there, 4 years here, just to kind of have some of that continuity, to have some of that personalization built into it. I think it's been very good for us. Again, I think that we've had to kind of change what it looks like to some degree, because large numbers and scheduling and all those type of things have kind of made us break down a little bit of the barriers. But certainly, I think I am a big proponent of the upper and lower school model, where those freshmen coming in. We have 585 freshmen come in this year to this place that is, their class alone is bigger than most of their schools that they're coming from. So it's important for us to make sure that there's still that connection. There's still, we can identify a kid that's struggling or build a lot of things in place to make sure we're making those connections that we should make.
And that's one of the things that I hear from the community is just it's a large school, 2,200 kids, a lot of teachers, a lot of staff, but at the same time, it feels like a small school. So it does feel as though there's an interpersonal connection, and you talked a little bit about that between the, having the lower school and the upper school.
And one of the pieces that we don't talk about a lot is we have this thing we call activity period, and that has also changed over the years. But this year, one of my groups, we call it a restructuring committee, wanted to look at our activity period. So the current structures, every Tuesday morning at 9:15, we have every kid go to homeroom. And it's typically for 25 minutes. In homeroom, there's one person that they're going to connect with and that they'll be with for the next 4 years, one adult. So that's kind of how we want to make sure that every kid has at least one adult, other than their guidance counselor, that they can connect with. And if they had a question that they weren't comfortable with asking or didn't understand something, that hopefully is a place, where they can get those questions answered, but also as they travel the 4 years, that's their one constant. Other than their guidance counselor, the one constant of a connection, and it's been really successful. Again, it's taken some different iterations where we've pushed some things through there. Certainly, come the holiday season, each homeroom will take on a community service project. We have Spirit Week coming up, and so next Tuesday, we will have a list of expectations for them to go over at home. So it's a good place for us to all get together, have a common conversation that typically you can't have. And again, I think we're able to deliver the same message in a very controlled environment, which is 15 kids to one adult, and it's consistently a place where they would go with that one adult, and it's just a great bond. And I think that has helped significantly in the personalization piece, so we've been very happy with that product.
I completely agree. My own kids have benefited from that one-on-one support over the years, so that's a great point. One of the things that we have the opportunity to do at the high school over the next several shows will be to highlight different aspects of the high school, in particular some of the different programs, extracurricular activities and so forth. So next time around we'll focus on some extracurricular activities, clubs and so forth. So thank you very much, Bill, and we'll talk to you next time. I'd like to thank Principal Chris LaBreck from Chocksett Middle School and also Principal Bill Beando from Wachusett Regional High School for allowing us to visit their schools today. During our next segment, we'll visit Mountview Middle School here in Holden. Thank you.